is how not to lose your shirt, because let's face it, everyone can handle making money, but how not to take a difficult morning. This was a difficult morning, especially with the way in which the NASDAQ sold off so sharply. We'll get to that in a moment. This was a difficult morning. And when we have difficult mornings, when we take a little bit more heat, look, there's a part of our brain that opens up and says, how do we avoid that in the future? And that's why I love to talk about difficult mornings. I love to talk about losses, because when we're on the heels of one, the brain's ready to hear and to correct, right? So if we don't do a little bit of self-introspection or trade introspection, we'll never get there. Nobody wants to hear anything on winning days. We don't learn anything from winning days, but challenging mornings, losing days, absolutely. All right, so with that kind of ramp up there, let's just get to it, shall we? What you see in front of you is the two trades that we had. And one was scaling into the NASDAQ, and the other was which was a long, and the other one is a short in crude oil. So let me show you all what the trades were, just to remind everybody. So here were the notes. We wanted to get into crude before we actually were able to. So this was on our radar from the get. 3 minutes after the bell, we wanted to short this thing. But we never got, as you can see here, what do I specify? Where our limit order to sell is. Never market orders, gang, because this keeps me disciplined. This slows everything down. This also allows me to park the limit order to sell in crude, and then it frees me up to be able to buy the June puts if I want to. All right, never got that shot, and then that window for the volatility closed. All right, no big deal. We'll recalibrate. But in the meanwhile, NASDAQ set up. And you'll see here what we wanted to do was buy the NAS. All right, I got to talk about candles of unusual size for a moment. COUS. What does that even mean? Yes, it's taken from the Princess Bride, rodents of unusual size. A candle of unusual size is a candle that's larger than, say, the 5 to 7 candles that preceded it on that time frame. And you know, candles of unusual size don't tell you they're candles of unusual size when they get. It's just when they exceed a certain length or height, however you want to look at it, we know now, oh, something is going on. Well, I really didn't know this was a candle of unusual size till about 14,460 was broken to the downside. And at that point, I realized, oh, this candle is bigger than the larger ones that came 5 to 7 candles before. But by the way, in the meanwhile, the entire morning was filled with these larger candles. So this didn't get my attention at first. So if there's anything that I could have done better, I could have been a little bit more vigilant about the way in which we sold off 10 minutes before the top of the hour. So I always try to think, what could I have done better? All right. So that is something where normally, if we see a large candle, you might ask, well, Rog, what do you do? What I do is I shorten the time frame to a 2 minute and I wait for a minor low. And that, frankly, would have got us in on the lower half of the hourly price movement range. So if you think about what we were dealing with at the time, that would have got us in a little bit lower than the 200 propulsion, a little bit lower in the range, which would have let me hang on to my aggressive entry at 14,463 and a half. Because by the time we got down to the lows of the 10 o'clock candle, when the CB consumer confidence number came out, I had to take a $930 per contract hit. All right. Now, for those of you that follow me in the Sector Secrets Mastery Room, you know that we scale into trades. Agro is the smallest of the entries. Moderate is bigger. Conservative is bigger yet. So I was taking heat on all of them, but to varying degrees based upon the way I scale in. And by the way, if you're trading into a hot zone at the top of the hour, if you're trading the first hour of the day, that is a more volatile time of day, and risk management, stop losses are reflect, the places that we place those orders, the spots on the chart have to reflect what's the nature, the characteristics of that symbol at a certain time of day with certain catalysts, like a hot zone at 10 a.m. like we had. Okay, so I had to cut that trade, which I did. And there was a couple ways that we were thinking about doing this. And you can see right in here We acknowledged this big candle, this big down candle, and said, look, we need to tighten up our stop. Where do I use a tightened stop? Normally, I'm going to use a tightened stop on the aggro, which is the highest buy I made. So when this thing hit 14,417, that's where this loss came from, right? On that small position. All right, but I still had the moderate from 14,448.5 and 14,420.5. Those were not taking on as much water, right? Those were not taking on as much water. And so I was able to sit through those. By the way, some of you took the QQQ 350 calls. Many of you noticed, because look, there's a lot of ways we can get into these trades. Doesn't have to be futures, doesn't have to be minis or micros. It can be options on the ETF, right? Okay, until those lose a certain percentage of premium paid, I'll hang on to them. They move a little slower. They're a little less leveraged than their futures counterparts, right? And so the aggro really didn't survive. So that was, again, small loss. But notice we did not make this trade sort of binary, all in or all out. Scale in, scale out. Really important. The remainder of my trade was put on a 14,395 stop, right? Which we never hit. We never even broke 14.4. So I cut the aggro, which was the responsible thing to do, because at that point, you know, again, 14,463.5, going all the way down to 14,417. At that point, you know, that's a good bit of risk. Now, some of you might say, Rog, I'm okay with that. That threshold is not going to damage my account irreparably if I hold the trade. So some of you might have actually done better than I did and hung on to that 14,395. And that's why I like to put all these levels out there so everyone can see it. Heck, so I can see it. Yeah. All right. And that was the way we managed this. So how do you not lose your shirt? You always think, and I always think, about where is the risk? How much can I tolerate? Now, yeah, this could have been a lot higher, right? My P&L on NQ, but it was still a positive day. So do you see that even by taking the loss from the aggro level, moderate and conservative were able to hang on? QQQ, for those of you that took that, was far easier to hang on to without that feeling of electric eels in your stomach. And then crude oil was another small winner, right? And you can see what we did with crude, which was we finally got that opportunity to sell that 738. We never did get to 770.76 or 71.05. It was just the aggro entry. And then we were able to scale out of that one. So a smaller. And by the way, only getting into the aggro, that's another way of controlling risk. Because if I'm shorting from higher with a stop loss at, say, 70.20, the level, or sorry, 71.20, the levels that are higher, closer to the stop, just by merit of their entry and the chasm between entry and stop being narrower, in that regard, they're less risky. So we think about this, and I hope this helps in terms of, you know, what we are looking to do in terms of managing. So yeah, today was another pretty darn good day, but I did take a loss on one leg of the NAS. And I think a lot of folks are not used to this process. It's okay to let one leg go and keep the others. Scale in, scale out. Okay, so I hope that helps. And this is something that I want to keep doing with you all to show you the way we scale in, the way we scale out, and hopefully this resonates because it was a pretty darn good day. Hey traders, Raghee from Simpler Trading. Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to leave a like and a comment below. And remember, subscribe and click the bell icon so you'll get notified of the next update. And when you're ready to join me for live trading, be sure to head on over to simplertrading.com. I'll see you in the next update.